Hello, I'm Sarah Davis from Integrated Treatment Services. I'm the Director of Services and Clinical Lead. Welcome to our webinar today. Today we're going to be talking about language concepts. So soon on your screen you will find a developmental order checklist of which order you would teach the language concepts in. So obviously some children that are developmentally delayed, the age equivalent that we are looking at may not directly correspond to where they're at. But the important thing is if somebody is developmentally delayed or their language is disordered, you would still follow the same pathway of concepts which are on the screen now. So you will see on there's a range of concepts that children need to grasp to be able to use these concepts in language, in sentences, to express themselves. So things like pronouns, he, she, boy, girl, his, her, prepositions on, under, in, behind, next to, in front, big and little, so size concepts, tall, short. So size concepts are an important one. Obviously there's colours, then you're talking about time concepts, sequencing, which will then lead into things like storytelling. So I'm going to go through in a little bit of detail some of the important methods of how to teach in a teaching session to teach some language concepts. I've been fortunate enough to do quite a bit of work with a company called Special Direct. The link is on the screen now. Special Direct develop all their resources with specialists, speech and language, OT, physiotherapists, dyslexia teachers. So you can be sure that the resources that are developed are ones that the therapist themselves or the person themselves has seen a need for in their own everyday activities and therapy activities. So they've developed them to be able to share them with you. So I've actually worked with Special Direct to develop some of the activities on language concepts that I found were really missing within my sort of toolkit of resources when I was in therapy and clinics. Or delivering therapy in clinics. So the first one I'm going to show you is something called practical prepositions. Okay, so here's the Special Direct logo up here. So this was developed because I was just finding that I wanted to be able to know I was being consistent in the way that I was teaching boy, girl, he, she, them, his, her, and also to have just the equipment ready at my fingertips to be able to teach these concepts. So the whole idea is that we have this board and we've got characters. So we've got the boy and we've got the girl. Okay, and then what you need to do when you're teaching any concepts is really important that you teach the vocabulary that you're using, because if we just launch straight into can you give it to the boy, can you give this to the girl, you need to be absolutely sure that they understand all the different sort of resources, the names of the resources that you're going to use. So first of all, we just use coloured spots. And I'd say things like give it to the child, and I'd say look, let's move her over a tiny bit so there's a bit more separation. I'd say here's the boy and here's the girl, and then I'd give them one of these and say can you give it to the boy? So you know you're expecting them to put it on. Great. Can you give it to the boy? Great. Can you give it to the girl? Great. Can you give it to the boy? Okay, you'll notice that it's really important that you don't just keep going obviously back and forth between boy, girl, and that you do try to make sure that you're doing sort of an inconsistent ratio of boy, girl, so you can be sure that they are understanding those. Okay, so once you know they've actually grasped boy, girl, you want to either, next steps, you could say, right, okay, so here's the boy, and this is the man, and here's the girl, whoops, here's the girl, and this is the lady. So you could, at this stage, if you wanted to, test boy, girl, man, lady. Can you give this to the lady? And they fit on the top of them as well. Can you give this to the boy? Can you give this to the boy? Can you give this to the girl? And so forth. So you can see how you'll go on to be able to teach man, lady, boy, girl. And the other concepts within this game is to be able to teach them, they. So you might just have the man and the lady together. So that's them. And here's the boy. So can you give it to the boy or can you give it to them? So you give it to them. Can you give it to them? Can you give it to the boy? Okay, so you can see how you can go on and teach them in that way. Now, I was constantly racking my brains trying to find resources around the clinic that I could then teach them, they. So So I'll show you how you can go on to then test those with vocabulary. So in the same way, you then need to be able to test the vocabulary that you're using. There's a little bit in the instruction sheet that I'll show you around language levels. And it's really important that you are clear how many language levels you were teaching in an activity. So giving it to the boy or giving it to the girl, a counter, that's one key information carrying word, boy or girl, that's all they're having to listen to. But when we start to say, can you give the rucksack to the boy? Can you give the jumper to the girl? Can you give the cardigan to the boy? Can you give the drink to the girl? We're having to listen. If you've got the boy and the girl up there, and then you've got a range of different items, that's 2 information carrying words. And it's really important that you know that they understand the concept words, the vocabulary words, generally the nouns, the naming words that you're going to introduce. So if, for example, I was going to just do or use these, like this, I would go through and just check that they understand all of these different words. So I would just say, can you give me, putting my hand out or having a box, can you give me the jumper? So you're wanting them to take it off and give it to you. Can you give me the drink? Give it to you. Can you give me the rucksack? Give it to me. You know, you might have used the word bag there. So just testing the vocabulary before you start working at word levels. So once you have, you can then put your, if we're going back to just boy or girl, so we'll go back to the boy and the girl. Once you've done that, you can then just put a range of vocabulary along the bottom, so a range of nouns along the bottom. So say we're going to use bag, we're going to use shoes, we're going to use skirt, we're going to use socks, and we're going to use the umbrella. Okay, it is also important how many of these words that you select, because obviously the children's attention and listening skills and being able to sort of sort between these pictures is another factor that's demanding more sort of cognition from them. So I would first of all, perhaps as a starter, just use 3 things, maybe even 2, and say, can you put the skirt on the boy? Okay, and this is where you need to go against the grain. So obviously, to be a true language concept, you need to make sure that it's not something that's sort of more habitual, like, you know, can you put the skirt on the girl? Well, they might just naturally associate the skirt to the girl, so in which case you're not really teaching 2-word level. So it's important that you make sure it could go to either the boy or the girl in the situation. So can you put the skirt on the boy? Great, and then I'd remove it, take it off. Can you put the shoes on the boy? So shoes and boy. So he's got to understand the difference between shoes or bag, boy or girl. So it's still 2 information carrying words. Great, okay. And this is when you might start to build it up. Umbrella, bag, cardigan. So you might name them again. Can you put the cardigan on the girl? Oops. Brilliant. Okay, take it off. Can you put the umbrella with the boy? Can you give the umbrella to the boy? And off we go. Okay, so you can see how you would go down that line. Then if you wanted to start to talk about her and him, you could actually dress them. Okay, so you could put a t-shirt on both, t-shirt on her. You could put some trousers. You could put some trousers. You could put some sunglasses. You could put some sunglasses, and last of all we could put some, where have we got those boots? Some boots, and put those there a little bit. Oops, move his boots down, there we go, and there. Okay, so this time we might be saying her and him, so, or his and her, sorry. So we could be saying, can you give me her t-shirt? Can you find her t-shirt? Okay, so making sure they can take it off and give it to you. Some children don't understand readily between giving it to you, and it might seem strange, but asking to just point or show you or give it to you. Sometimes it's better to have an actual box that you want them to put it in, because it offers a bit more structure to them, so they realise there's a purpose in what they need to do. So it might be better to say, can you put her t-shirt in the box? So away you go. Can you put his shoes in the box? Okay, so you're testing his and her, okay? Then we might be teaching about their. Okay, so might have the same thing. Let's have a look. She needs some sunglasses. So again, it is important that they've all got the same level of things on. So if you're going to ask the difference between him or his and theirs, they each need to have the same thing on to ensure that the word levels will count, sort of thing. So they've got sunglasses, they've got hats, okay? So I could say, could you give me their hats? So then knowing then in that case they need to give both, okay? Can you give me his sunglasses? And then in this case, yeah, the sunglasses, just one lot. So as you can see with these kind of activities, all the materials are there ready for you to sort of work through the different levels within the activity. Each of the activities that I designed for Special Directive, it all got a teaching script with them. So it will tell you in which order to go through. First of all, boy, girl, man, lady, he, she, his, her, they, them and theirs. And then it talks to you about language levels, so it will make sure that you can definitely check that you are teaching language levels. What would you need to have on the boards to confirm it's a definite 2-word level instruction that you're giving, or a 3-word level instruction. And then it also then goes through sort of types of sentences. So if you wanted to talk about he and they, dressing the characters I've said and say he is wearing something pink, can you put it in the box? They have something that barks, can you put it in the box? So it gives you the examples of how to go through every concept within the activity and how you would teach it. So that's one example of a language concept activity, and we call it practical pronouns. So if you want to teach pronouns and you need some materials to do it quickly, I'd highly recommend the practical pronouns set from Special Direct, and there's a link coming up on your screen now for them.